Are you at the precipice of becoming, embodying, or stepping into your genius? Are you good about fully practicing, getting out there and demonstrating and sharing your gifts with the world? Or are you twitching a bit when I say that? Stick with me. If you think you are or are curious about what I'm saying, this episode is for you. I am going to share what I'm going to be doing in my show to help you with exactly this.
You're listening to The Brand Compass, conversations to navigate your way to building a brand fit for purpose and poised for success. Here's your host, 𝗘𝗣𝗜𝗦.
Hello there, my friend, and we are back after a little publishing break over the Christmas holidays. But this is now episode 59, which I can't quite believe, but here we are. It's been quite interesting creating my own podcast show as opposed to doing it for clients. And like many podcast hosts, I had an idea when I started the show, and I didn't really know where it was going to go in terms of final destination. But I've learned firsthand that actually that's just not the way it works. It's something that I can say moves with you over time and evolves as your voice and your message matures. If you've been listening since the beginning, gosh man, thanks. I really, really appreciate you and your loyalty. I'm aware that for a brand new independent podcaster, the beginning can feel quite squeaky in terms of finding that nice juicy junction between the topic or the conversation you're having and having that interest of the listener and making sure I'm delivering something that's actually useful and interesting for you. As well as at the same time, try and educate or entertain you at the very least at the same time. I'm also aware that just about 80% of podcasters don't make it past episode 23. That's an astounding statistic, isn't it? So I'm really happy. I'm sitting at episode 59 and doing a bit of a reflection, a bit of review of where I am, how I'm feeling. So I'm going to use that episode today to share this with you in terms of where I am right now, in terms of the show, and what I'm going to be doing in the next few episodes. So stick with me because I have an exciting concept to share with you. And also to kind of intimate who, I'm not going to say who, but the kinds of people I'm going to be bringing on the show for you next and what you can get out of staying loyal to the show and to me. We are staying in the lane, of course, of still talking about all the ways in which your personal brand meets the humans you serve. And I'm going to go maybe a little bit deeper, perhaps a little wider, but with a fresh lens on the subject. Are you ready? All right, here goes. Let me just start with where I'm at. Okay, so in terms of how I feel about the show, honestly, it's still one of my favorite things to do, and it doesn't feel like work. I love deciding what the next path of topics, much like I'm doing now, is going to be, and how I can go deeper on some things, or maybe how I can introduce some ideas or concepts to you as my listener, or even use you as a sounding board for me in terms of thinking out loud and what's rolling around in my head. And I love it when you send me DMs and tell me what you think. That's really helpful for me. I love the challenge of finding the next right person to have that unique conversation with me so you can enjoy being that fly on the wall of a conversation that maybe you haven't actually had yet. As a host and also as someone running a specialized agency that actually supports other people with creating and launching their podcast shows, I'm even more in love with this industry than I was before. I just love audio. I'm a big music and movie fan, and I love listening to artists, actors, musicians, and anyone in that arena when they are actually guesting on podcasts as well. They really know how to play with their voices so much, and they're also very expressive with their thoughts and emotions. So for me, it's just glorious to listen to them. So in terms of the future of my show, for now, this is where I'm sitting. I feel like I'm at this, do you ever get this feeling when you're doing stuff or creating projects and moving through your journey? I'm at this tipping point of a next iteration, if you like, for this show. So as with anything you create, it's only once when you start and then you gift it out to the world and see how people interact with it and give you feedback. Does its true colour and purpose become clear about what it's meant to actually grow up to be, if that makes sense. So while I'm a strategic marketeer by trade per se, I was not born thinking that this is what I wanted to do, right? In fact, when I was a kid, I wanted to be a nursery school teacher. So if you're American, that's kindergarten. And if you're in the UK, it's probably those years where kids are somewhere between 3 to 5 years old. And I've always been more drawn to small children who still are filled with wonder. And they ask lots of crazy questions. It's the time when humans are most open to loving and caring about others, as well as haven't really learned yet how to wear masks or to hide their true thoughts or feelings, which I find very frustrating in adults, that is. However, in reality, what I ended up doing is doing a degree in economics. The world of business just gives me a buzz. There are so many moving parts to it, so many stories, and I'm glued to trying to find out how these things all work. And it just really, honestly, feeds my voracious curiosity engine. And I did at one point want to go and do a master's in communication, but mainly because I found out that Ken Blanchard, one of my leadership heroes, had actually collaborated with a university to create a degree to do that. But instead, I moved countries, and my wiggly career just kind of led me to the strange world of social media and digital communication, which in fact did not exist when I was at university. However, what this fandangled new thing called social media gave me was the ability to flex and nurture my own creativity that I did have within me, which up until that point, I was only really allowed to play with in my amateur writing, which I've been doing since I was 13 years old. Anyhow, so let's swivel back to this show and why you are still here. I've found that by doing the show, it's helped me to work out my own voice, but also to feed this hungry curiosity lion I have living inside of me. There are 2 guests now that have actually spurred me to concentrate on what the next iteration is for the show. And that was 𝗧𝗛𝗧𝗦𝗛𝗡 and Nikki St. Paul. Obviously, if you have been a guest on my show and you're listening, I loved all of our conversations, right? And lots of stuff has spurred off for me for all of those conversations. But these 2 are the most recent ones, and I feel like they're the ones that were kind of sent to me to have, so that this next thing could happen for me, for my show. So in episode 54, if you haven't listened to it yet, I spoke with 𝗧𝗛𝗧𝗦𝗛𝗡, and I just loved what she said. And that was that there's this electric magic that happens when people are becoming, embodying, or stepping into their genius. She talked about how there is this vulnerability about you and within you just before you claim your genius, and that it can be a bit scary making that first leap to claim that space. I mean, I literally got some butterflies in my tummy, I have to say, when she was saying that. And I thought, well, is that what I'm feeling now? This vulnerability and nervousness of stepping forward and claiming my genius, because I have been feeling a little off balance, a little weird, okay, over and above perimenopause and hormones, but just intellectually. Then she also went on to say that we have put the effort, she was saying that we actually have to put the effort in to practice being all of ourselves and in using our voice. Sometimes that can literally be in using your voice, in terms of volume, tonality, and making sure you're being heard. But I think in my case, it's looking more at opportunities to get my voice out there and not shying away and sitting back to give others the space instead. Do you resonate with that? Do you find yourself doing the same thing? Oh, okay, good. Not just me then. And then on top of all of those things from Finona's conversation, there was something in the conversation I had with 𝗧𝗛𝗜𝗦𝗢𝗏 in episode 58, where she described what it looks like to be, in air quotation marks, in the flow. You know, that time or feeling where we're operating at our best as professionals? She was talking technically about working to access your ventral vagal system, where you feel grounded, settled, calm, safe, connected, curious, open, compassionate, mindful, and in the present. Now, wouldn't it be wonderful to be able to operate more from that place and spend more time in the flow? Now, I don't know about you, but the way I like to learn is to see things in motion. I'm not great at being told what to do or follow instructions per se. I think it's too 2D for me, and I don't do well taking instructions auditorily, if you like, so by voice. I'm highly kinesthetic and visual. So I like to look for models of excellence so I can actually see or experience something in action or motion to learn how it plays out. And in that case for me, that means where can I find real life working examples? So in this case, I would generally seek out people who are good at practicing getting their voice out there, and similarly those who look like they're in flow and are already stepping into their genius zone. So that brings me to my idea for the next few episodes, which may well steer the path for the show going forward, but we'll see how we feel when we have those conversations, right? I don't really know. Are you curious? Okay, so this is what I'm going to do. You already know that I'm really enamored with subject matter experts, or people who hold extraordinary levels of knowledge that goes deep into a subject or an area. It's who I'm most drawn to working with, and it's who we tend to work with in my agency business for personal branding and also in developing podcast shows. Now, I'm going to get some really specific subject matter experts on the show for you to meet and listen to. They're going to be from completely different fields, and some you may not have even considered as a subject matter expert, which is the most fun. They're going to be a mix of people I've been following for years. Some I know from my university days. Others are people I've been connected to for years, and I've just been glued to watching how they communicate or market themselves. So the idea is I'm going to have conversations with them using this lens that I've crafted from my conversations with Finola and Nikki. I want to ask them how they navigate this claiming of their genius. Like, when did they know that that was the thing? How have they matured over time? Because as we know, growth means movement, movement means change. So over time, they will have had to have changed. So how do they navigate those evolutionary points, if you like, in changing their message with the outside world? And how do they feel about their personal brand? And I suppose the other thing is, can they count joy as a measure of their success now, which is what Finola shared with us in episode 54. I might alter which questions I ask which guest, but you get the idea. So I promise you will find these conversations really interesting. I'm hoping that it will give you the impetus or motivation to seek out your genius in order to claim it publicly and widely. By doing that, you could become more of yourself, more of the time, and have joy at the center of your everyday. And that's it for now, folks. So I'm excited for the conversations I'll be having in the upcoming episode and how they can help and entice you to dig deeper into finding the shape of your own version of how you embody and present yourself to the outside world through your personal brand. I hope I've piqued your interest enough to look out for the new episodes as they come out. If you'd like to ensure that you don't miss an episode, I do have an email alert that goes out to anybody who would like it, just to give you the heads up. It's just a reminder that goes out on the day that they actually are published, and it gives you a quick sum up of who I talked to or what the episode is about, so you get a bit of cliff notes as well when they are released. If you'd like to get on that, just go to the show notes, also here in the app that you're listening on, or put a little link inside there for you as well, and you can go ahead and do that. As always, thank you for your ears and your time. I will be back in 2 weeks, so I look forward to being with you again soon. Until next time, my friend, stay strong, believe you have value, and make good brand decisions.
Thank you for listening to The Brand Compass. If you enjoyed this episode, make sure to share it with your entrepreneurial friends and help them make good brand decisions. Until next time, let's keep the conversation going at 𝗘𝗣𝗜𝗦𝗢𝗓.com.